He is a professor of surgery at Emory University School of Medicine and holds a PhD of neuroscience alongside his many surgical and medical degrees. This gentleman is internationally recognized and is a professor and has been invited to speak in several countries, including Indonesia, China, Japan, Malaysia, and the list goes on. He was recognized in America's Who's Who in American medicine and has performed over 150,000 heart transplant operations without a single mortality. This man has 6 patents issued to his name and is a brilliant inventor, very thought-provoking. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome Dr. Omar Lattouf.
Thank you very much, Noor. Good evening. It is my pleasure to be with you tonight and to welcome you all to You Beyond. And I want to start, and I would be remiss if I do not recognize the great work that has been done by the committee to make You Beyond an organization. And I would particularly be remiss if I do not recognize our chairman, Mo Mustafa, who has made this possible, who has worked very diligently, and who has given us the leadership. Please stand. This evening is very special for many reasons. For me, it's particularly special. I was asked by my colleagues to be the keynote speaker. But for my very selfish reasons, I didn't want to be, because I wanted to invite someone who's really very special to speak tonight. And I wanted for that person to speak. I wanted to enjoy and learn from what he has to say. At my age, I have met many great people in my life, and I have been around the block several times. I have been, and I have argued with friends and foes. I've been in the company of Moshe Dayan and argued the case of my people in a futile way. I have had lunch with presidents. I've had lunch with President Carter on his invitation. I've been to the White House. I've shook hands with President Arafat. I shook hands with the late King Hussein. I've been in the company of the late Rabin, and I have been invited to the White House by President Bill Clinton. I say that just to let you know that I know a leader when I see one. The leader that we are going to listen to today is a man who has made history in medicine and will continue to make history in medicine. His work has already influenced the lives of thousands of people, and is very likely that his discoveries will influence the lives of millions of people. He is truly very remarkable in many ways, and forgive me, Fadlo, for saying all of this. He is truly remarkable in many ways because he is a teacher's teacher, he is a professor's professor, and he is a mentor's mentor. He is Fadlo Raja Khouri. Fadlo, we're very grateful to you.
Thank you, Omar. I don't deserve that, but I will make sure to book Omar in advance for my funeral. I want to say that this is a very powerful and meaningful event for me because, frankly, I love science, but mentorship is what has meant the most to me in my life. And I am very, very honored and blessed to have Omar as my friend and, frankly, my brother here in Atlanta. We have an incredible community, but we need more people who always see the glass as more than half full, who want to make an impact beyond their work. And I would like to offer my respect, my admiration, and my love to Dr. Lattouf, Mr. Mustafa, for this incredibly powerful cultural event. Thank you for having me. So Omar asked me to talk about my career and what I learned from mentorship, both as a mentee and as a mentor. And I speak to you as a very fortunate individual who had more than his fair share of great mentors. The point that I want to make tonight is that I didn't have the opportunity to have enough mentors from our own Arab American community, because I think that it has taken us a while to understand that the single most important thing that we can do in this greatest of democracies is to contribute to bringing forth the next generation. As a physician scientist, I grew up inspired by my own father's example and really basking in the glory of science and medicine at a transformative era. But I came of age as a physician during the AIDS epidemic. This is something that Dr. Haji, who is a great physician investigator and epidemiologist, has forgotten more about than I'll ever know. But it was the sense of helplessness as we took care of these people that really, in my mind, impressed upon me that I wanted to be in the clinic. Like Omar, I wanted to get my hands dirty with direct patient care, although with a far less technically gifted pair of hands, it fortunately wasn't in the OR. So I believed, since I came of age in my mid to late 20s, that some of us were meant to make an impact in the clinic and others in the lab, but that it was really only in bringing those two disciplines together that we could make a real impact on such formidable diseases as cancer, cardiovascular disease, AIDS, and other malignancies. So as a practicing medical oncologist focused on the treatment of lung and head and neck cancer, I started to look for a mentor. My father was a great renal physiologist, and I was lucky in that I found a series of mentors. And you'll recognize that those mentors represent something of the rainbow that is American culture. So my laboratory mentor was Bernie Weinstein, who is a Talmudic scholar, a very religious and devoted American Jew, who would always rewrite my letters of recommendation so they didn't sound like me, because he wanted me to do better than I probably deserved. When I got to the Boston City Hospital, I found clinical mentors, Jim Heffernan, Bob Witzberg, John Pearson, and others, who taught me to synthesize clinical knowledge with science in making a difference for those less fortunate than ourselves. And then in my fellowship, I worked with Mike Atkins and Dan Karp, who honed my skill at clinical research. These individuals all had different backgrounds, but I felt that there was something more that we could do. And I started to look for the next step, and I went to Houston with its thriving American community to work at the MD Anderson Cancer Center, specifically to work for a mentor called Juan Ki-hong, a Korean American, a man who had come here after being a flight surgeon during the Vietnamese War and had started literally at the bottom of American medicine at the Lenox Hospital in the Bronx and then at the Boston VA. Really places where in the 1960s and 1970s, graduates of American medical colleges and of the American University of Beirut stayed away from, because that's where people who were quote unquote foreign medical graduates were. And so these foreign medical graduates, this generation that came of age in the 60s and 70s, came and they actually redefined clinical investigation. Many of us have seen them. These are people who trained at top medical schools in their countries, and they came here wanting to make a difference. And I looked for Juan Ki-hong for a very simple reason. I believed then, and I believe even more so now, that for the treatment of the diseases that matter most to me, lung and head and neck cancer, prevention and reversal of carcinogenesis is more important than disease. And I can honestly say that that decision to take my family from Boston, where my brilliant wife was thrilled, she thought Boston, other than Beirut, was the capital of the universe, and I had to move her to Texas, where the postdoc who trained me, Rob Krause, once said, when I told him we were moving to Houston, he said, "Are they giving you combat pay to move from Boston to Houston? Why don't you come back to New York?" And I said, "Well, I think I've found a teacher who can help me to learn what I need to learn." And so over 7 years there, I learned several things, but the thing that I learned from Key more than anything was something that I should have been paying more attention to in my own father when he was the dean of the medical school at the American University of Beirut. It's the power of the phone call. It's the ability of someone to make an impression on a friend or a colleague when you believe enough in someone that you pick up the phone and say, put this person on the committee. Give that person a chance on your editorial board. Why don't you help someone take a clinical trial? I had been watching this behavior when my father would call his friends in the mafia of the 1970s, formerly known as the nephrologists of the East Coast, and he would carefully place residents at medical residencies, medical schools, fellowships, and he picked the best and the brightest of not just the Lebanese people that were at the American University of Beirut, but of a whole sea of Arabs and Arab Americans who he thought could excel. Why did he do that? Why did a man who was trained by Americans, who got a Ford Foundation scholarship and other scholarships to go back and learn and implement basic research and build a program in Lebanon, why did he insist on making sure to place people in leading academic positions, something that I've devoted my own career to? Was it so they would come back to Lebanon or to Jordan or to Palestine or to Syria or Iraq to make a difference in their own cultures? I think that's a partial answer. Something Omar and I talk about frequently is that there is the rich culture of Arab history, which during the European Dark Ages allowed the Arabs to preserve much of the highlights of Latin and Greek history and amalgamating their own discoveries. This sense of a longer-term view. And I believe that he understood, as Juan Quijón, my Korean mentor in the US, understood, that it's important to take the long view with people. So for the last several years, and last year was a wonderful and for me an ironic year because the Aleph Institute, our cultural institute under the leadership of Angela Khoury, honored me with their award in the same year that I received the top scientific award in our cancer research field, which is named, ironically, after an American Jewish philanthropist. So that made it a very interesting year. Why do people do these things? Why do they go out of their way to help the next generation? I think because like many of us, like Quijón, like my own father, like Omar, and hopefully like myself, we believe that helping place the best and the brightest in positions where they can move their career, where they can impact science, medicine, art, business, commerce, history, other fields, allows for the continuation of a cultural history that was so important hundreds of years ago and remains vibrant today. All you have to do is read some of the work of modern Arab intellectuals over the last 2 to 3 years to see its impact even on Western thoughts, but to keep giving opportunities for the best and the brightest to move forward. I have always found it interesting how we all step back and we integrate our different streams of identity. I was raised to be proud of being an Arab, a Christian, an American, and a Lebanese. I never found any of them incompatible. It never struck me that in the voyage of the diaspora from Lebanon, from Egypt, from Syria to America and Europe, there was an uncomfortable feeling, a lack of anchoring, because we had not managed to create enough of a dent in academic medicine, in science, so that we had a generation of mentors, our generation, ready to accept all the bright, hungry people who send us emails, who write to us and say, I'd love to do an elective, I would like to come visit, I'd like to work in your lab. Well, your lab is busy, I really don't like oncology, I like cardiovascular medicine, that's an easy one. Omar actually is one of those remarkable people who I try not to call 24/7 because he actually answers 24/7, including in Far Eastern Asia. Rana is equally disciplined at answering all the time. I'm not that good, it goes to message. But how can we help the people that we are trying to mentor here and the next generation there. And I think the reality is that we grew up, most of us, with an expression which taught us to try to do something good and not look for the immediate consequences, not look for what you're going to get out of it. And I think this was a lesson that I learned in Houston from Kihon. I should have learned it from my father, but being much slower than Dr. Lupton just let on, it took me a while to realize, why is this man doing this for me? Why is he letting me lead author this article? Why is he letting me write this grant? Doesn't he want to be a corresponding author on the paper? Why does he let me take care of this patient who has influence and can make a major donation to the center? Is he calculating what he will get back from his mentorship?